All right, so you guys know Nick Sandmann, right? Nick Sandmann, the Covington Catholic MAGA hat kid who was completely disparaged by the media. Well, this guy just got some really great news, and the Washington Post, the Washington Compost, should be a little bit nervous because a judge is reopening the case and allowing some of Nick Sandmann's claims to go forward after the courts threw out his massive $250 million lawsuit last summer. So Nick and his legal team get to move into a process. It's called discovery. And that means they can request documents from the Washington Post to provide context to how they decided to report the incident at the Lincoln Memorial earlier this year that we all now know was one of the biggest examples of journalistic malfeasance, the biggest examples of botched journalism, botched reporting of all time. The Washington Post, they literally lied. They lied about this young boy. And then they think they're just going to get away with it. Well, it turns out they might not. The judge ruled that an amended complaint submitted by Sandmann's attorneys alleged in greater detail than the original complaint that Phillips deliberately lied concerning the events at issue, and that Phillips had an unsavory reputation, which, but for the defendant's negligence or malice, would have alerted defendant to this fact. Boom! So if the sloppy Washington Compost had done their due diligence, they would have quickly discovered that Nathan Phillips, the boom, 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 Indian with the drum, boom, boom, he's a scumbag with a history of claiming racial harassment and misrepresenting his military service. Back in 2015, he claimed racial harassment by college students dressed as Indians at a party that he walked into uninvited. And he says he was walking by when he saw college students dressed in costumes that he thought were offensive. So he decided to engage with them and ended up calling the police. So he has a history of inserting himself into situations that have nothing to do with him. And then he claims to be a victim. And then he also loves to tell people that he's a Vietnam vet. He's this brave vet. Not true, because according to his military records, he enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserves serving from 1972 to 1976, but he never left the United States during his service. He was in Lincoln, Nebraska and El Toro, California, and then he was discharged as a private. And then his records also show that he was a refrigerator repairman. And he can't have been a good one, because after being confined for going AWOL 3 times, he was discharged as just a private. And private is the lowest rank in the Marine Corps. And in the Marine Corps, your 2 first promotions are pretty much based on the time you've been enlisted. So you complete your boot camp, you get a promotion, and then a few months later, you move up again. So that shows what a completely hopeless case Nathan Phillips was. And his records could have been obtained by the Washington Post through a simple FOIA, through a simple Freedom of Information request, but they didn't do it. Oh, but they're journalists. Well, you would think a journalist would do their due diligence. But they aren't journalists. They are agenda-driven hacks who thrive on confirmation bias. And old Native American brave Vietnam War veteran says those white MAGA hat teens were mean. Well, that sounds great to us. That sounds accurate to us. We're not going to check it, just send it to print. So we're going to keep an eye on this case and keep you updated, because the Washington Post, the New York Times, the New York Slime, CNN, PMSNBC, they all want you to forget about it. They all want you to forget about how badly they botched this story. They want you to forget about the time their hackery blew up in their faces in such a humiliating fashion, when they took a small and innocent guy, Nick Sandmann, and drummed it up. Boom, boom, boom. Nathan Phillips, boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. I'm an Indian, boom, boom, boom. And they drummed it up into a national story because they thought it was the perfect example of these racist, evil MAGA teens. And then it blew up in their faces. And is there any accountability? It blew up in their faces and showed them for who they really are, which is biased monsters who hate you.